We're going to keep it moving with part 6. My Christian sisters, my sisters in Christ. The question that I'm asking is, why are you settling? And again, don't tune me out and say I'm not settling, because we can settle and not know it. So in the first 5 parts, I talked about what settling is and how to recognize if you're settling. Now I'm getting to the part that I'm excited about, and it's the reasons why we settle. This one right here, wow, is, I don't know. It was in my list of my outline of the videos I was going to do. It might have been third down the list of the reasons why we settle. But yesterday when I woke up, I just felt so impressed to share this one first, because I believe somebody must be dealing with this, and somebody's must be dealing with this, and so I'm going to go ahead and get into it, because this might be a little longer than normal, but listen to the end, because I believe it's going to be helpful to you, to help you get from where you are. And it'll also help you recognize if you're settling. If you just look at some of the reasons I'm going to share of why you might recognize yourself in there. One reason, but it's going to have some parts to it, that we settle is because of who we are hanging with or who we are around. The people that are closest to you, who you spend most of your time with, is really a part of keeping you where you are. Now, this is not everyone, but if it's you, you're going to know it's you. So this can be a reason, I'll say that. What came to my mind when I woke up yesterday, the word that came to me is, you're hanging with the 10 spies. And the 10 spies I'm talking about are the 10 of the 12 who went to Canaan in the Bible, the 12 spies who went to Canaan to see what it was like. And they came back with an evil report. 10 of them did. Saying, yeah, everything that God told us about that land is awesome. The fruit is plenteous, abundance is big. There's definitely milk and honey flowing in that land. It's a great land. But, they had a but in there, there are giants in the land. And we can't take that land, because in their eyesight and in our eyesight, we are like grasshoppers. That's the report that they brought back to the nation of Israel about the place that God told them to go. And they believed the 10 spies. They believed that negative report. And so a whole generation missed out on the promised land, what God had for them. They settled in the wilderness. They didn't want to go in. They settled there because they believed an evil report. And the bottom line is, they just didn't believe what God said. They didn't have the faith, because what they said was true. They didn't lie, right? They didn't lie about what was over there. But what they forgot was, and what they left out, and what they didn't emphasize, is that God already said, that's yours. I've given you that land. They didn't have the faith for it. And so now, because of their negative self-image, because you remember now, they came out of slavery, but slavery didn't come out of them. So they used their past experience and that slave mentality to interpret what they could or could not do. And so a lot of times we have people around us who, it's like we have this big dream, we have this big vision, we see things that we want to do. And the people around us, all they can talk about is the challenges, the negatives. Oh, I don't know if you should do that, because you got to do this, this, and this. And, it's just negative Nellies, all the time, feeding you doubt, whether you can make it or not. And they don't mean any harm. They're just coming from their point of reference. They're not trying to hurt you. They're really trying to help you and protect you, just like these 10 spies, where they thought they were protecting Israel, but they weren't. They were keeping them from getting to where God wanted them to be. They were keeping them from moving forward. So that generation ended up wandering around in the wilderness, and that's where a lot of us are. We've settled in the wilderness because we don't think we can achieve what God says that we can. So you need people around you who are faith filled, who see the challenges that are ahead of you, but know that God said you can have that, and they're there to encourage you, because it does get discouraging sometimes. I have a coach right now, as I'm trying to accomplish some goals, and sometimes it's discouraging, but I paid the money for a coach because I knew I needed someone who could see the bigger picture, who is where I'm trying to get to, and who would be encouraging, and give me instruction and lift me up and feed my faith. It was worth it to me to do that. And so you need people like that around you who will encourage you when you get discouraged, like Joshua and Caleb did. They were like, we can do this. We can take this land. But because they were in the minority of who they were hearing, it didn't click with them. Who do you have all around you? You need the people who don't see the challenges, but see the God in you, and know that the God in you is greater than anything that you come across. I'm reminded of the theme scripture for Treasure Quest, which is 2 Corinthians 4:7, which says, we now have this light shining in our hearts, but we ourselves, we are like fragile clay jars, but we have this great treasure in us. And this makes it clear that our power is from God and not from ourselves. We can do it not because we're so awesome, but because God is so awesome. And you need people around you who can see that and encourage you in that. Okay? All right. Sometimes it's our family. Okay? We love our families, right? We do love our families. But sometimes you have to break away from family because some of them are those negative Nellies that I just talked about. And, I'm not trying to be harsh, and I'm not trying to encourage you to leave your family or anything like that. But you just got to be aware of why you are not fulfilling everything that God has for you. Okay. And family are people that we have close to us. So we have to really evaluate and look at that. You can love your family and nothing's like family, but sometimes they're just not going in the same direction you're trying to go, or they don't have that mindset that you have. It's nothing wrong with them, okay? It's just that God is calling you to something different. And Abraham is a great example of this, right? And you read about it in Genesis 11 and 12, all right? His family were idol worshipers. And God wanted to do something different with Abraham. And so he called him out of his country, all right? They lived in the land of Ur. So his father, him, his nephew Lot, and his wife Sarah, they left Ur, and the scripture says in Genesis 11 that they were on their way to Canaan. They were on their way to the promised land, but they stopped in a place called Haran, or Haran, however you say it. They stopped there, and it doesn't say they just stopped there, but it says they settled there. They didn't make it to Canaan, to the promised land, but they settled in this place called Haran, right? And personally, I think part of it is because Abraham had a brother named Haran, and he died. And I think his father was still grieving that. And so when he got to this place of his son's name, he just settled there. That's what I think. Grief just kind of made him stop. So people have their issues, and they settle, for reasons why they settle, but you're along with them. Okay? And so then you end up settling too. When his father died, God was like, okay, leave your country. I believe he told Abraham this when he was back in Ur, the land of Ur, however you say it. Although it says Terah took his family, or Terah, he took his family. But I don't know. I believe that God spoke to Abraham there as well, and told him to get out of his country, which Ur was his country, away from his people, away from he's like, leave all of that. God told him to leave all of that. But here he was with his father and Lot. Lot was the brother who died. That was his son. Okay. And he said, leave all your family and go to Canaan. But Abraham was on his way, but because he had this family with him, they settled short of where he was supposed to go. And I believe God told him to leave his family and his country because he knew that they would settle, because they were idol worshipers. They didn't worship the one true and living God. And so they, what did they care about what God said or where God wanted them to go? The place that they went to, Haran, was another place of idol worship. That's where they felt comfortable, and so that's where they settled. But that's not where Abraham was supposed to settle. And so sometimes God will tell us, you have to leave this group of people. Not that you always leave them physically, but you have to spend most of your time with a different group of people to help you get to where you need to go. Or you may have to move out of a city, or you may have to move out of a state, just like Abraham had to leave his country to get where God wanted him to go. I'm going to share this short story. When Tim and I lived in the area of Michigan, man, it was such an oppressive area. I mean, it's like you could feel it. And I believe I, talked about this before in a different video I did. It just felt oppressive. It felt impoverished. It's like a spirit of poverty was over the area. It just felt dark and it felt gloomy, even when the sun was out. And I just felt like God saying, you need to get out of here. You need to move out of this area, because you're going to come under the influence of what's going on over this town. I was like, oh my goodness. And so when we moved out of there, we moved to a different city that had a whole different vibe to it, I guess you want to say, or spiritual climate, where we could really grow and excel. And we did. We did, financially, career-wise, and everything. It was a good place for us. So sometimes you have to move out of the area that you live in. All right. Okay. Then lastly, I guess I want to talk about, sometimes you have to move away from the people who helped you, right? They helped you get to a certain point, but that as far as they can take you. And this could be said, I guess, with everyone I talked about. They're great people. They're not negative Nellies. They've encouraged you, ministered to you, helped you. But now this is as far as they can take you. And so then you need to find another group, or let the Lord put you with some other people who then can take you to the next level. And just as an example, can I use The Lion King, because I love the Lion King has so many spiritual principles in it, especially relating to the mandate that God gave me about helping people know who they are, right? And again, this is out of order because I wanted to deal with Simba losing his identity and all that. But as far as it relates to people who you are surrounded with, I think about Timon and Pumbaa. They came into Simba's life when he was dying and almost dead, right? And so, they picked him up and they nurtured him or whatnot so that he could live and so that he could thrive. However, I believe, if I remember correctly, when they were deciding what to do with him, because he was a lion and he was their natural predator, they're like, hey, we might can use this to our advantage. And so I think initially they were saving Simba because it would be nice to have a lion on their side, because of his identity, because of who he was, because of his nature, who God made the lion to be. It's like this person would be a great benefit to us, right? So what they did was they took him and they nurtured him. However, they nurtured him and nourished him with food that they ate. Like, here, try some grub. Anything but animals. Anything but your natural prey. We don't want you eating us up. So they kind of directed him into a food chain or whatever that wouldn't include them, so that they could be safe. So he didn't hunt animals like it's his nature to do. So they totally impacted who he was, his identity, and what he naturally is. So he settled, instead of ruling in the pride and taking his position, he was running around singing Hakuna Matata, because that's what the friends around him, that's what they did. And because they directed him in this direction for their own purposes, because they were comfortable with it, because they were safe with it, because that he was just doing what they did. And so it took Nala, a fellow lion, to come into his space and say, hey, what are you doing? It took Rafiki to say, pop him on his head and say, you don't even know who you are. It took his father coming back to speak to him, to remind him of who he was, and we'll talk about that. And so those are the kind of people, the Nalas, the Rafikis, that parent or whatever who can remind you of who you are and what you've been called to do. Those are the kind of people. But when we surround ourselves with people who, this is all their, Timon and Pumbaa were being all they could ever be. That's all they could ever be, right? So they could take Simba only so far in his purpose. Thank God they saved him. Thank God they took care of him, but only so far. Only so far. And so thank God for the people who have helped you this far and have done their best, because that was their best. That was Timon and Pumbaa's best. And people you have around, they've helped you as far as they can. They've done their best. They've taught you what they know, but it doesn't encompass all of who you are and who are you are supposed to be. Oh, can I say this before I go? Listen, you don't want people around you who are just yes people, to just agree with whatever you want to do, whatever you say. They're like, yes, yes, yes. That's not the kind of people that you want. You want people around you who love you, who will help you grow, who will affirm you, but you need people who will also challenge you and tell you the truth, who will reel you in when it seems like you are just really going off to the left somewhere instead of moving forward. I tell my friends that all the time. It's like, I don't want people around me who will not be honest with me. So if you have people around you that are just yes people and whatever you want to do, I'm honest. I want people, I want people to be all that they can be. And so even in the coaching that I do, I'm going to be honest with you, but it's in love, to build you up, to edify you, to make you strong, not to tear you down, not to criticize. All right, so I'm starting up this group coaching program in January. I'm going to put the link in the description of this video. Please check it out. If you saw yourself in here, please schedule the 45-minute free from settling to seizing discovery call. It's totally free, 45 minutes with me, and we can determine if this program is a good program for you. There is an investment. There's a time investment. There's a financial investment. But that's what you need to get you out of the place that you are and moving on. It's going to take something to do that. So again, just check out the site, and thank you for joining this live. I'm going to repost it, have people come back and watch it that this would be good for. And please share it. Just share it. You never know what people are going through or who might appreciate this word. All right. Be blessed.